Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Evangelia SAVVIDOU. I'm a fifth-year medical student at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki in Greece, and I'm the current coordinator of SDSN Youth Black Sea, and I'm also the hostess of this event. I would like to welcome all of you to the online event called Our Future Through the Sustainable Development Goals, organized by SDSN Youth Black Sea with the support of SDSN Black Sea. First of all, I would like to thank all the participants from all over the world, as we can see from the comments here in the Q&A box, and as we saw from the registration form. And I would like to thank you all for being here today and for your great response to our event. And of course, a huge thank you to the professors and experts who constitute our panel for this event. So Professor Andjelka MIHAJLOV, Professor Karin MARKIDES, Professor Eden MAMUT, Professor Emmanouil, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, Professor Nicolaos THEODOSSIU, and Mr. Sam Loney. I'm really honored that you accepted our invitation to attend this event and enabled us to make it a reality. So this event comes as a culmination of a social media campaign on the SDGs and sustainable development running in SDSN Youth Black Sea social media during January and February. We hope that you will enjoy the event, feel inspired, and gain valuable insights on the topics, the SDGs, and of course, the role of youth in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. We will have a short round of greetings, so I will give the speech to the professors and the experts that are here. So let's start with Professor Andjelka MIHAJLOV, a short greeting to the participants.
In the latest agenda, I was the second in the row, but I could proceed now.
Just a short greeting, if you want.
Just introduction.
Yes, just an introduction.
Okay. I used to teach environmental engineering at Faculty of Technical Science, University of Novi Sad, Serbia. I used to teach environmental engineering, sustainable use of natural resources, environmental and climate change governance and policy, waste management. Now I am a consultant for years and associated with only one NGO from region accredited in Assoc called Environmental Ambassadors for Sustainable Development. I'm glad to be the panelist. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let's move on with the short greeting for Professor Karin MARKIDES.
Yes, let's see. Hello, I'm Karin MARKIDES. I'm a professor of chemistry and from the beginning, and I have been made a career both in chemistry and also in leading universities, and been doing so in Sweden and US and now in Armenia, and I'm very happy to be part of this panel.
Thank you so much. We are also very glad to have you here. So, Professor Eden MAMUT.
Kalispera. Hello, everybody. Hello to all the group of students that are interested of their future worldwide. So we would like to thank you for organizing this event. I am from Romania, and here in Romania we are very close to the Greek culture, and from that perspective this approach of considering let's say the aspects of sustainability, of let's say appropriate use of resources and care for the environment is something in the culture of these regions, and this is coming from centuries. So it is extremely important to consider the current context and to look forward how this has to move on. So once again, congratulations for what you have done, and we hope that this will be a very fruitful exchange of ideas on how this has to be considered for the next decades and why not centuries. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Professor Emmanouil SMYRNAKIS. We cannot hear you, unfortunately.
Not at all. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, I have to speak a little better. So hello to everybody. My name is Emmanouil SMYRNAKIS. I'm coming from Thessaloniki, from Greece. I'm associate professor in primary healthcare and medical education, and I'm working more in undergraduate medical education. And I also coordinate here in Greece the Youth Primary Healthcare Research Network. I would like also to thank the organization committee for inviting me to participate in this, I hope, very interesting and challenging session.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Professor Nicolaos THEODOSSIU.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us. It's really, really exciting to have such distinguished guests as speakers and panelists today. This is a great day for our network. This is the first major event of the youth branch of SDSN Black Sea, and we really had much more response than we expected. We already have about 400 registrations from all over the world, and currently we have about 150 people connected online at this very moment. I am Nikos THEODOSSIU. I'm a professor of civil engineering at the Department of Civil Engineering. I'm a professor of water resources management, and I'm the chair of SDSN Black Sea, the Sustainable Development Solutions Network for the Black Sea. I will tell you a few things about that a little later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor THEODOSSIU. So, as you all know, the event consists of a series of 15-minute talks and a 30-minute panel discussion, during which speakers will discuss and answer your questions. For that reason, you all have, the participants, the attendees to this webinar, the opportunity and permission to pose questions in the question box. The question box is at the bottom of your screen if you're connected through a laptop, computer. If you are on the phone, you can tap the 3 bullets, and I'm pretty sure that you will find the question box. You can ask questions during the whole duration of the event. I would like to ask you to be clear and to mention in the beginning of the question the speaker or speakers to whom the questions refer to. Moreover, you have the ability to vote on questions that are more relevant to you and you would like the most to be discussed during the panel discussion by the end of the talks. We will try to pose them first to the speakers, and we will try to ask as many questions as possible given the time limit. So before moving on to the talks, I'm going to make a very short presentation of SDSN Youth Black Sea to get a better understanding of the network and our activities. So let me share my screen. I hope that you can all see my shared screen, right? Okay, perfect. Thank you for the confirmation. So, SDSN Youth Black Sea, it stands for the Sustainable Development Solutions Network Youth for the Black Sea region under the auspices of the Secretary General of the United Nations. The network is part of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network Youth Initiative. This is the Global Youth Network, and the Sustainable Development Solutions Network for the Black Sea region, which is SDSN Black Sea. SDSN Youth Black Sea was launched in July 2020, and it aims to unite the young people of the wide Black Sea area under the goal of sustainable development. And as you can see in your screen, we expand our activities in 12 countries in this wide area. So a few words about SDSN Black Sea, and Professor THEODOSSIU will mention probably more later on his talk and presentation. The network was launched in October 2018. The hosting institution of the network is the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki in Greece. And the aim of the network is to unite the people of the wider area under one goal, that of sustainable development, and of course to motivate universities and research centers to get involved and to cooperate for the common benefit of the residents of the countries around the Black Sea. The activities of SDSN Black Sea expand in the same countries as the activities of SDSN Youth Black Sea. So the aims and objectives of SDSN Youth Black Sea is to educate young people about the SDGs and create pathways for achieving them, to connect young people, to exchange ideas, share experiences, and collaborate to achieve the SDGs, and of course to support young people in the creation and scaling of innovative solutions for the SDGs. In order to achieve these aims and objectives set by the Global Youth Network, we organize events as this one, and we try to raise awareness through more or less interactive ways through our social media and our website. And we provide opportunities to the young people of these countries by running the global programs in this screen in our region. So if you're a student, you can join the SDG Students Program. I will mention a few more words in the next slide. And if you are a member in a youth-led or youth-focused organization, you can check the membership program. And of course, you can also check the Youth Solutions Program, the Local Pathways Program, and Global Schools Program, and engage yourself in these programs if you meet the specific criteria. So as for the SDG student program, this is a global network of students hubs where students can come together to learn about, engage with, and take action on the SDGs. And the aim of the program is to transform the world's universities into hubs of learning and engagement for the SDGs, and as well as drivers of new solutions to local problems. To put it in simple words, this program has to do with the local students groups called students hubs in the universities. So if there is an existing hub in your university, you can join it as a member of the hub. If there is not a hub in your university, you can actually take action and form such a hub in your university and provide this opportunity to your peers and the fellow students. You can find more information in the website seen in this slide. And of course, you can contact us to discuss more about this opportunity and to guide you into contacting the existing hubs or establishing your own hub under our support and assistance and guidance. And a few words about the membership program. This is a network of student associations, youth-led and youth-focused organizations dedicated to youth empowerment and the SDGs. If you're working in a local, national, or regional level in the Black Sea region and the countries that are part of our network, you can register your organization in the membership program and become part of this community. And you can also see the benefits, some of the benefits that you can gain if you join this community. We can find us on our website, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn accounts. And of course, for whatever you want, if you want to join the SDG Students Program, if you want to apply for the membership program, if you want just some info about the network or a specific program, or if you have an idea and you would like our assistance during the shaping and implementation of this idea, you can contact us in our email, black.sea@sdsnyouth.org. Thank you so much. And I will now stop sharing my screen. I will put all the links in the chat for all the attendees interested in finding out more about SDSN Youth. And now I would like to call the first speaker to the podium. He is Professor of Water Resources Management at the Department of Civil Engineering at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki in Greece and Chair of SDSN Black Sea. He's going to introduce us to the topic of the Sustainable Development Goals and the 6 transformations to achieve them. So, Mr. Nicolaos THEODOSSIU, we're looking forward to your speech.
Thank you very much. Let me also share my screen. Sorry. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So again, I'm really very glad for this event today, for being with you and for you for being with us. It's really an exciting event. As I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of significant response from all over the world. We have 400 registrations, and this is really exciting. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So I'm not going to talk about the SDGs. As a matter of fact, when the United Nations introduced these Sustainable Development Goals, they also suggested a way, the means for their implementation. And this is through a number of global networks that are either national or regional. These networks are called Sustainable Development Solutions Networks. And the global community expects from these networks to provide new and innovative solutions for the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Our network, the Sustainable Development Solutions Network for the wider area of the Black Sea, and our youth branch, which is our host for this evening, are such networks. People expect from all of us to provide new ideas and solutions to achieve the goals for our common future, because the United Nations think that the current technology and the current knowledge is not always enough, and we need new innovative ideas. And these new innovative ideas come from universities and research centers. They come from professors, and they also come from young people who have the passion of moving forward, and they are very concerned about their future. And many of these people are here with us today. This is our network. Eva mentioned earlier the countries are most of the Balkan countries, all the countries all around the Black Sea, up to Azerbaijan and the Caspian. So it's 12 countries. It's a huge network, and it's very, very important for us to try to manage the implementation, coordinate the implementation of the SDGs within this huge network. The Sustainable Development Goals are not to be considered as 17 independent goals. This is a mistake. They are actually 17 parts of one single goal, our common future. And this is how they should be considered. In fact, in 2019, at the end of 2019, in order to avoid further misunderstandings, the United Nations adopted the idea of the 6 transformations to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. These 6 transformations, the one you see in my screen: education, gender and inequality, health, well-being and demography, energy decarbonization and sustainable industry, sustainable food, land, water and oceans, sustainable cities and communities, digital revolution for sustainable development. These 6 transformations provide a new perspective in our effort to implement the Sustainable Development Goals, since they address simultaneously a number of goals, demonstrating and emphasizing the complex approach needed to achieve our goal. I'm again really happy and excited to be here with you and that we have everyone with us today, both the distinguished experts from various countries of our network who are going to present their approach on this topic, but mostly of the students all around the world, the concerned students, the concerned younger generation, that is a very active generation, and I'm sure that they will promote the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals in the best way they can. So with no further ado, I would like also to welcome our speakers for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. THEODOSSIU. Your presentation shed light to important points that will help us gain a better understanding on the following topics. And I would like to emphasize that we do not speak about 17 distinct goals, but for one, and we are talking about sustainable development, and also the new topic of the 6 transformations to achieve the SDGs, which connect all the goals together. Thank you so much. So we'll move on now. And the next speaker is a prominent professional on chemical engineering and with an astonishing background on education, research, and innovation. She is Professor Emeritus of Chemistry at the Faculty of Science and Technology at the Uppsala University in Sweden, and she is currently serving as the President of the American University of Armenia. Ms. Karin MARKIDES, I'm very grateful for your presence in our event today, and I'm looking forward to learning more about the topic of sustainable cities and communities.
Thank you very much. Please start my slides if you want. Thank you. So yes, I'm going to share with you some experience and learning points that I have on sustainable cities and communities, and as was pointed out in a very good way, that of course all these goals are very complex and they connect to each other, and this one in particular, I think it connects to everything. It's a true complex challenge with sustainable cities. Next slide, please. So sustainable cities today and tomorrow, of course, since we have this complexity, we have to find a way to approach it. And the first priority that I suggest, and many people are working with, is to really focus on people's health. Because if you focus on that, you will also see the critical challenges of air pollution, noise, lack of green and blue structures as the challenges that you approach. And by doing so, you connect to everything there is in the city. So of course, also you have to understand and see what the cities are not similar today and tomorrow. For instance, we know that in 30 years we will have from 3.5 to 7 billion people living in urban environments. So that's going to make a difference. And of course, we also have a transformation of trends that is now effective more and more, like in electrification and digitalization. And that is, of course, going to have a really strong effect on the not the least transportation, but everything in the city. So both positive and negative, we have to make sure that it's positive and it is for people, for health and equality. So then we also have to think about that the climate is changing and, I'm sorry, could you go back? The climate is changing and we have a lot of things we have to consider about the clean water, the rise of the water, and forest fires and heat, wind and water are going to fluctuate much more. So all these things are things that we have to consider. And the next slide, I have put together what the approach to really, the perspectives to really have with you when you do this in the experience that I will show you a couple of examples of later here. So it is based around a co-creation perspective from where university and public and private actors are working together. And the perspectives are, first of all, is integration. Integration between disciplines, between stakeholders, and all the different perspectives that we have in play. The universality is also as important. Universality means, of course, a level play field between everything we do. And then the transformation is the third one. And as I said, the digital and energy transformation is what is driving today in the most effective way. So here, I think it's important to see that what that does, that we have to consider. We always have ripple effects if we make a transformational change, and we have to consider those ripple effects throughout the society. And we also have to really look at to train people, both young and mature people and older people, to systemic thinking. And we have to also understand that things can go much faster, more disruptive and agile. So we also have to be prepared for taking that road when needed. We also have to think about that skills needs to be changed. We have to lifelong learning is an aspect we have to have with us for this to work. We also know that the complex work jobs are going to remain, but the non-complex might be eliminated from in the process. And also that we will have more competition between different natural resources. For instance, energy will compete with materials and food. All these things have to be considered in order to really understand how that we get a sustainable city. Also that we might see, or we will see, a value change of ownership of value, and that will be an input to more circular way of thinking, new circular business models, and a very important component in the end here, that engineering will kind of reclaim its position as being technology for people and connect it in that way. So there are a lot of positive things in here. So please, next slide. I will show you the first example of this, and this is an example that is a 5-year project that just ended in the second largest city in Sweden, and it is an electrified bus, 100% electrified, and charged at end stations. It is really made according to what I just told you, this process, public-private university co-creation, and it was needed, I would say. Without that, it would not have functioned. Now it is actually a benchmark for many cities in the world. So I just want to go really fast through this and say what is the first, why do we do this? We do it for people, to have exhaust-free buses driven by clean electricity from renewable sources. So that's fine, we have that in place. And then where would we do it? We have to do it in a way that we have a simple as possible test route that touch upon visibility. We have to have it very visible to build also awareness and interest in the community, and a uniqueness also in attraction points in this. So we did that by changing one bus line in the city that goes through the center. It's the end stations in the university's 2 campuses, where we made the end stations into research projects, and in indoor challenges to have indoor bus stops. And also we made it attractive by entering one bus stop in a library and one in a coffee shop. You could do that when you have electric buses. So then we had to see all the partners that should be, that really needed to be involved here. And public, private industries, universities, science development parks, 3 of them, local, regional, and national public actors. But all in all, 14 diverse partners that probably never talked to each other very much before this project. So it was to really make everybody understand and see each other and really kick in their financial parts in the co-creative process was actually a big challenge, but it was needed, build trust, and we could make this this test route into, now it's a test bed. The city has taken out this bus route now and replaced all the buses in the city with the same system. So next slide, you can see actually I have a couple of pictures of this. If you change slide, yeah. So here you see the bus in the end station in the university where it's charged. It takes only, I think, 7 minutes to charge it fully to between. So, and then it goes out from the coffee shop and on there also you see that in the library. So it's just, the question is that it's too quiet maybe, that's the only problem. Next slide, please. And of course the batteries in the bus, when you use them, then they have 80% of their power left. So then we made an integration because we had that collaboration in the city. So we put it in packages and made it available for buildings to use together with connecting it into their solar cells on the roofs and into the electrical grid, so that they could actually utilize them as to really take advantage of the power when it's and storage and so forth. And when it's when it doesn't work like that anymore, we also have in the system that it goes back into circular, take care of the and make new batteries of the materials. Next slide, please. So that was an example of a concrete example, but that really could, and also it's open to test as a test bed now for people that want to test different components in such a system. So that is also kind of a scaling possibility. The other example I want to show you is an urban future model that is a little more complex in a way. But it's on a higher level. So here, this is a 10-year project that also ended recently, and it is five cities in the whole world that are connected. And so they are very different cities in the world, and they really work together with this level play field to see how they could actually together look at accessibility, green and fair cities, to see how they could break through and really grasp those best practices there. And the co-creation with a combination of local and global level as in the other project, and is the whole model that I'm talking about. So the accessible city, the green city and the fair city is explained here, what perspectives it touches upon, and you can see that it goes straight through all of the SDGs when you look at it. So next slide, please. In next slide, you can see the model, how it functions, and the local interaction is a backbone of the methodology. Is the same as I told you already. It's a local context, including stakeholders from public service, society, industry, and academy, and on a level play field. And they work in a bottom-up process here with collaborative, comparative processes. And what do they work on? Yeah, they co-produce in two different perspectives as well. And that is shown here in the green. Here is a transformational way when they are comparing the change, the governance, and the knowledge. And in the blue one, you can see that there is 3 dimensions in socio-cultural, socio-spatial, and socio-ecological perspectives. And when you get this all together and work together with these different cities, you really get a lot of information useful, and especially if you have trust in the system that you can share and really boost sustainable development throughout. So the next slide, and now this, as I said, these 10-year projects have been very successfully completed, and now you can see the scaling of that is, of course, when you take it into digital tools like digital twin between the 3 private sector, academia, and public sector, and you have it on the global level. You can actually from the best practices, you can build this digital twin city in the center and where they interact, and that twin city can of course take us to a digital future and change the different components and see how it would, what effects it would have, and how much you can save in energy and have better quality of life in the city. So this is what's happening now. And so yeah, that was my second example. Now you wonder, of course, what's happening then in Armenia. And this next slide, I can show you that in Armenia, it's very interesting to see that we 5 years ago they started quite a strong movement in sustainability in actually working together with this in the cities, and the first step here is to really try to see how we could get a better carbon dioxide emission reduction, and by changing all the lamps, and also by utilizing photovoltaic systems, and in different ways looking at water, air, soil biodiversity in the cities. So that is going on in different kinds of projects. But in the middle here, you see the survey on green city concept on households. And I think that is fine. I find that very interesting, because there you can see here that 88% of the population in Yerevan is they are positive to electric public transportation. In this survey, that's a lot. I mean, almost everybody wants to have electric public transportation, like the buses I talked about. But then you see also in the same survey that 83% of the apartment owners, they don't know what the management fees are used for. So you can see that there is a really a possibility, I would say, for if we can really help and work with the public awareness, engagement, then we can reach, we can move fast, because the interest is there, you know, the understanding and the drive is there. But if you have a lack of public awareness and how you work with the public system, then of course it's going to be difficult. So we are focusing on that from the university perspective. What can we do to make the public awareness better, and how can we with our stakeholder you know, role really make a difference here, and also with our students to really see how we could work together. So here you can see also in the bottom, we have a lot of interest coming from other countries, and inviting from other countries to see what can be done, and also going into circular thinking. Here, actually the circular garden, I think it's interesting. It used to be a very fantastic garden that goes circle all through the city, that has been taken over by different type of initiatives that is not sustainable. But now there's a movement to take that back and to really kind of integrate the green and blue parts in the city as well. So I think that it's of course a lot of challenges, but a lot of things also happening. And I'm sure that's true also in all our countries that we have in this region. So I'm hoping that we can find really good collaborative projects in this area. Let me show you one example of a project that we are working with in Armenia right now, next to our university. Next slide, please. And so that is a park that is connected to an old traditional park that is connected to the university. And now we got resources from Asha funds, and that we could actually develop this to be a meeting place for where we are actually working on this the community, university community, and the public at large, to really meet there with community engagement, to understand the circular applications, eco-smart initiatives in the domains of energy and water and biodiversity. And to be able to really build on that with public awareness, we also have another project that we are looking at, surveys to engage people in the community around. So this is our little test bed here to really get going and see how we can work together in this public university private partnership and co-creation. And as a university, we also have extensions, open education out in most of the regions and cities in the country. And of course, it's just we have a lot of possibilities to implement specific projects in the same way there, and hopefully together with the people from you, from this organization, from this network of young people that want to be part of this transformation. So my final slide is just a summary of recommendations that from the experience that I have been involved in, and see that comes together, that we have to really run sustainability through the whole university. We cannot put it in one part of the university. It has to also, we have to be responsible from the university to build up hubs, living labs, and agents of change, integration areas where we can meet and transform, intersections for that. That is something that the university has to kind of take care of and provide in this meeting place. And we also have to make sure that we are talking and showing sustainability to be a good and net positive contribution in society, and not talk about it as a problem and constraints and limits. We have to build interest and awareness in the public. And we also have to find ways to, and build how we build trust so we can get the public, private, and civil society engaged in what we are doing. And so to do it together in a level play field, so every input is equally important. So no, not money talks in this situation. So we also have to really put a strong focus on getting students' engagements, and a lot of the transferable skills that we are now trying to provide in the university goes in this direction for design thinking and sustainable in collaboration in these projects. So I think that concludes very much my view on this development sustainable city, with a couple of examples, and I hope that that was food for thought, and that we will start to be able to collaborate more in the future here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Karin Markides, for your enlightening speech. It actually brought new insights on the topic, and especially I want to emphasize the need for partnerships and joint efforts for the implementation of the 6 transformations, and finally the achievement of the SDGs. So thank you very much for introducing us to the concept of public, private, and university co-creation, and I'm pretty sure it triggered new ideas to the attendees listening your speech. Thank you very much. And we can now move on to the next speaker. Our next speaker has a great experience on environmental and sustainability topics. She is an environmental specialist, environmental consultant, scientist, and former professor of environmental engineering at the University of Novi in Serbia. She has also served as a Serbian Minister for the Protection of Natural Resources and Environment. And as you can understand, her speech is going to shed light on how environment, education is connected to gender and inequality. Ms. Andjelka MIHAJLOV, thank you so much for making us the honor to participate in this event, and we are looking forward to your speech.
Thank you. Could you allow me to share the screen? Yes.
I think you have
yes.
permission.
Okay. Okay. Is everything under control? Yes.
Yes.
I'm really glad to participate in this event, and it is a good opportunity to share my thoughts about the real implementation of Sustainable Development Goals. My previous speaker already tackled the importance of education and skills, and I thank you very much for this nice introduction to the first transformative module for transformation of Sustainable Development Goals. It is education, gender, and inequality. I add to this environment, and I think I will justify why I did that through my presentation. as said, one of the the Sustainable Development Goal transformation as model or building blocks of Sustainable Development Goals is education, gender, and equality. Having supported by Sustainable Development Goal 9, innovation in infrastructure, because this is somehow included in this transformation model. I add to this environment and choose this to contribute how this Sustainable Development Goal Transformation 1 can be achieved through environmental, climate change, sciences, and to open the issues of some challenges and possibly gaps in achieving Sustainable Development Goals globally. About the education. The education pillar of this transformation is built on principle, the leave no one behind. And in early childhood development, primary and secondary education, vocational training, and higher education. The goal focuses on complete, free, adequate, and quality education for all. I added this here, and I will go with this later on with the explanation, and appropriate for work in future education. That means quality and appropriate for work in the future education. This is very important to tackle, special for youth network, because possibly they will be the people working in the future. In all fields implementing Sustainable Development Goals. It is well known that we need to expand and transform national educational systems, meaning teacher training, curriculum development, evaluation of learning outcome. Myself, how and who. How we will teach, train the teachers, when we as the teachers are special in environmental and climate change sciences, we are educated in the old-fashioned way, and now we have to teach to train the current teachers. This is who and how. Possibly our curriculum is still old-fashioned in a lot of countries, not moving too much from some old concept of environmental science and climate change science, meaning that no one size fits all. We have to focus on complete, free, equitable, and quality education for all. Now I'm coming to UN report, how in UN report in 2020 about the Sustainable Development Goals implementation. It says the world is not on track to meet 2030 educational targets. Progress towards inclusive and equitable quality education is too slow, and the effects of COVID-19 will be added to this too slow qualification. Now, second pillar, gender. Just to remind us that women are key agents of change. Gender-based discrimination is widespread. This is something that we could show a lot of examples of that, but I would like basically to point out that women are generally more disproportionately impacted of exposure of pollutants, chemicals, and wastes. What did the UN report said about 2020 implementation of this goal? Says, despite improvements in child marriage and female genital mutilation, women's representative in the political arena, full gender equality remains unreached. And with COVID COVID-19 pandemic, this goal is probably even more distances from to be reached. Just to mention here, because not to think that the gender is only the subject of the first transformational module, a large number of interventions across all 6 transformations contribute towards meeting Sustainable Development Goal 5, linking with the gender. Now, inequality. It is also built on to leave no one behind principles, and we are talking about gender, race, social status, or other qualifiers. We could talk about economy, social protection, labor standards, it includes anti-discrimination measures, and UN report said that despite some positive signs, inequality in its various forms persists, with COVID-19 impact potentially to make it even more severe. I'm not telling more than this. I just would like to underline something what I will underline later on in the presentation: inequality within and between countries. I think that we have really a lot of students and participants to this event. I see from all around the world, and a lot of them are probably young generation people. But it is important to consider young generation as a future generation and intergeneration equity to include. But to note that representing the interests of future generations should not be primarily delegated to young people. This is something that I think we have to have that in mind when we talk about the planning of the future. And now I'm choosing, as you heard, I am coming from environmental science, environmental engineering science. By education, I'm a chemical engineer, and I'm about 30 years working in the field. And this is pretty normal for me to choose environment to address how Sustainable Development Goal Transformation 1 could be better achieved if the quality of education include the topics in environmental science, environmental engineering science, ecology, climate change science, especially environmental health, primarily addressed within Transformation 2, all environmental media pollution, air, water, soil, biota, multilateral environmental assessment implementation. This is something that we have a global agreements. A lot of countries ratified that, but implementation is at the national level, and it is very different from country to country. We have to have a topic in education on climate change mitigation and adaptation, sustainable efficient use of natural resources, fishery, forestry, marine, food and agriculture resources, land use, biodiversity, water resources management, sustainable urban development, transport, water, sanitation and waste management, also research in environmental science, climate change science, and other related sciences, and not to forget as a skills, digital skills and technologies. This is very important to remember that technology is important word. Now, we have to think that the transformation 1 will require integrated design and implementation of interventions and education on environmental climate change topic, curriculums, but mandatory curriculum, science, knowledge, informational based and supported by appropriate good governance. And now I am opening something what is my big concern and subjects of discussed for years, how to deal with countries' specific starting points towards transformation. As far as I see, and I participated in the process of developing sustainable development goals, but this is somehow not too much present, this starting point of different starting point of different countries. Just to explain what I think, better to explain. This graph I constructed in 1997 for one conference, Hazard Waste World Super Fund Conference in US, but unfortunately, I could share today with you, and it is still valid. Meaning that developed countries had one single media approach to environment in 1970. Now in 2020, they are something between industrial ecologists and sustainable communities, meaning that in developed country, they already practicing multimedia emissions of pollutants, energy and materials like cycling, trying with this transformation to tackle capital, labor and equity. Unfortunately, in developing and in countries in transition, started about 20, 30, 40 years later, and did not make any smarter move, and somehow are going through the same paths as developed country, meaning that now in 2040, we developing or countries transitions are at the level at all facility planning, meaning that we are still not calculating all factors in environmental cycle. This is what I'm meaning when talking that if we teach students about old-fashionedly about single media approach to environmental pollution, it will be something that it is not something to be valid in 2050 and 2020 and further. Just to give example, in my country, Serbia, we have now strong, very high air pollution, and despite good scientists at universities talking about multimedia pollution, integrated pollution and prevention control, public and media, they're just dealing with single media approach, air pollution separately, water pollution separately, biota separately. That means that to rethink the different starting point of the countries in reaching sustainable development goals is something that we, according to my opinion, we should consider. To repeat, education, until now, progress towards inclusive and equitable quality education is too slow. This is on a global level. Full gender equality remains unreached, and inequality, despite some positive signs in various fields, inequality persists. And my contribution is that having in mind that research and development and innovation is already identified to contribute how sustainable development goal transformation one could be better achieved. Environmental, climate change sciences used in the education curricula could contribute to better achievements of sustainable development goals. And just to wrap with some challenges. As it stands, the world is not on a course to achieve sustainable development goals. This is not my sentence, this is from UN report on monitoring report. With different starting points, environmental performance starting points, our Agenda 2030 and Paris Agreement particularly practically achievable in all countries. I have to tackle something else here. A lot of countries have a good policy, paper policy strategies, but they have difference in practice. This policy are in a lot of cases just on paper, not in practice, and infrastructure is not existing to implement these multilateral environmental agreements. And this is something making the picture, the scheme I presented 1 minute before is really valid in a current moment in countries in transition. Our existing ideas for integrated pathways that implement sustainable development goals transformation should take that in account. And I'm really arguing that to include this block in the puzzle would possibly accelerate the implementation. And once again, to repeat, not one size of strategies towards sustainable development goals not fit all. And it is very important that green jobs based on sustainable development understanding should be integrated in the learning and vocational training for the youth, because we will have about 60 million new jobs in the green economy by 2030. And we are still having very slow, as UN said, changes in educational system. Women and chemicals pollutants is underexploited topics, and political commitment is not strong enough. To conclude, seeds for transformative process have continued to grow, but time is short critical. With this, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ms. MIHAJLOV. It was really a pleasure to listen all the points you raised in your speech, and particularly the approach to education, gender, and inequality from an environmental perspective, if I can say so. So thank you so much, and really I want just to point out the main principle of the 2030 agenda, the leave no one behind concept, and of course that there is not a fix for everything, there is not a size for everything, and we have to find the more inclusive way to achieve the SDGs and also to take action. Thank you so much. And moving forward to...
Now, just to stop the share, okay.
Okay. Okay, I can see that the Rector of our hosting institution just joined the call, so I will give him the speech for a short greeting. Excuse me, Mr. SMYRNAKIS, for this. And we will move on with the next talk after the greeting from Mr. Nicolaos PAPAIOANNOU. Thank you so much for joining our event.
Thank you very much, and I would like to apologize for the delay, but I was in another congress, in another committee of European Society of Pathologists, so it was a little bit difficult for me to be on time, and for this reason I would like to it's great honor and for me, and I would like to thank Professor THEODOSSIU and all of you for inviting me to be here with you. Just a few words, the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, the largest, as you know, university of Greece, and one of the largest in the southeastern Europe, is strongly committed in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals as defined by the United Nations. As a matter of fact, the Senate of the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki has declared in 2019 its commitment to forward and implement the SDGs through its education and research activities. It is also important to state that the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki hosts, since October 2018, the Sustainable Development Solution Network for the wider area of the Black Sea. This is a very important network whose aim is to bring together scientists from universities of the 12 countries that comprise the network, who can provide new innovative solutions for the implementations of the SDGs. Last year, the youth branch of SDSN Black Sea was launched, with the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki being again the host institution. This evening's event is the first meeting of this youth network, bringing together students from universities, not only from the 12 countries of SDSN Black Sea, but also from all over the world. With these few words, I would like again to say that it's honor for me, and I hope that this event will have great success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Papaioannou, for making us the honor to join our event and for your kind words. We hope that you can join us for the rest of the event and participate in the panel discussion if you want by the end of the event. And now we will move on to another transformation, to another topic that I'm mostly aware of due to my studies. And we'll move to a speaker that has been my professor since the first days at the university. He is a general practitioner with a specific interest in primary healthcare, medical education, and research. Allow me to say that everyone who knows him personally appreciates the energy and the effort he puts in whatever he does, and his care for providing opportunities to his students. He's Associate Professor of Primary Healthcare and Medical Education at the School of Medicine at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki in Greece. Mr. SMYRNAKIS, thank you so much for accepting my invitation to speak at the event, and you may have the speech to talk about health, well-being, and demography.
Thank you, Eva, for the invitation, Dr. THEODOSSIU, and all of you. My talk is about health, well-being, and demography. The much quoted 1942-48 WHO definition on health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence, disease, or infirmity, has not only stood the test of time, but appears even more relevant today. In truth, physical, mental, and social well-being must be the goal towards which we all work. Health is a fundamental human right, and the attainment of the highest possible level of health is the most important worldwide social goal, whose realization is the responsibility of governments and requires the action of many other social and economic sectors, in addition to the health sector. People's health depends on working and living conditions that promote flourishing lives and a healthy and protected natural environment. Sustainable Development Goal 3 seeks to ensure health and well-being for all at every stage of life. The goal addresses all major health priorities, including reproductive, maternal and child health, communicable, non-communicable, and environmental diseases, universal health coverage, and access for all to safe, effective, quality, and affordable medicines and vaccines. It also calls for more research and development, increased health financing, and strengthened capacity of all countries in health risk reduction and management. Health targets for SDG 3s are reduce maternal mortality and all preventive deaths under 5 years of age, fight communicable disease, reduce mortality from non-communicable disease, and promote mental health, prevent and treat substance abuse, reduce road injuries and deaths, universal access to sexual and reproductive care, family planning and education, achieve universal health coverage, reduce illnesses and death from hazardous chemical and pollution, and also for added targets as implement the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, support research, development, and universal access to affordable vaccines and medicines, increase health financing and support health workforce in developing countries, improve health warning systems for global health risks. Now more than ever before, we have tools that help us to harness the power of data, to collect, process, and analyze data faster than ever before, to understand the world and to change it for the better. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which member states have fully committed to, are vital measures which enable us to track whether we are on target to an improved future for everyone. They help us understand how equipped we are to meet the challenges of guaranteeing that all people enjoy greater health, peace, and prosperity in 2030. Indeed, we are living through extraordinary times. The global outbreak of COVID-19 will have an unprecedented and as yet unknown effect on the work towards a healthier world. The last year World Health Statistics report makes clear that the global efforts in recent decades have been paying off. Looking at the most up-to-date data we have on some of these vital SDG indicators, it reveals health trends across member states, region, and the entire world. The data shows that we are continuing to make enormously encouraging progress in many ways, but also that we lack progress in other ways. Inequality persists, with some regions still falling behind. Life expectancy gives an indication on how long a population is expected to live on average, but healthy life expectancy reveals the true health of a population. It's about both length of life and quality of life, not just the number of years the average person lives, but the number of years they can expect to live in a good health. And the current news is that between 2000 and 2016, healthy life expectancy increased globally by 8% from 59 years to 63. This visualization reveals the interplay between life expectancy and healthy life expectancy and allow us to see how this has changed between 2000 and 2016. The further to the right a country appears, the greater the proportion of life is lived in good health by people in that country. A large bubble represents a longer healthy life expectancy. The data tell us a story of great global progress. Health has increased globally during this period of time. Yet from this chart, we can see there are many disparities between regions. We're going to achieve equality across all regions, but currently there is a clear difference in equity between Africa and Europe. There are great challenges to surviving and thriving through life chapters from infanthood to old ages, and some regions face far greater challenges than others. From declining mortality rates to ending epidemics of infectious disease, the world has made significant forward strides, but there is much more to be done. This visualization highlights the progress made in recent decades, where we stand today, and reveal the challenges we still face. In some contexts, the beginning of new life, motherhood, and infancy presents life's greatest health challenges. Yet, the downward trend of these two charts reveal major progress has been made in both under 5-year mortality and maternal mortality. Since 2000, the risk of a child dying before their 5th birthday has halved in the African region. This is due in part to gain made in vaccination coverage for specific disease. From 2000 to 2019, global coverage of diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis immunization rose from 72% to 86%. However, we can see that under 5-year mortality remains a significant problem, in Africa, where the rate is more than 8 times higher than in Europe regions. Many countries require significant effort to get on track for the 2030 goal, to reduce under 5-year mortality to at least as low as 25 per 1,000 live births. This goal is in sight, but there is more work to be done. Most maternal deaths are preventable. The deaths of women as a result of complication during or following pregnancy and childbirth reflects the global inequalities in access to quality health care. Globally, between 2014 and 2019, 81% of births were attended by skilled health professionals, but these differ significantly between regions. We can see from the chart above not only how much progress has been done in reducing maternal mortality, but also where more efforts are needed. By 2030, we aim to reduce the global maternal mortality ratio to less than 70 deaths per 100,000 live births. Africa's current ratio is 525 maternal deaths per 100,000 live births. That's more than 7 times greater than the target. Infectious disease, such as malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV have long been some of the world's biggest killers. The African region still lags far behind the global average in all three, yet the past 2 decades have seen dramatic progress. Incidence of HIV, TB, and malaria have decreased globally since 2000, yet they still pose a major threat. Indeed, progress in the fight against malaria has stalled in most regions since 2014, and HIV has increased in Europe and Western Mediterranean compared to 2000. Non-communicable disease can affect everyone, anywhere, regardless of age or gender. These diseases are not transmitted directly from person to person, and crucially, premature and deaths from NCDs are largely preventable. NCDs are primarily cardiovascular disease, cancers, chronically respiratory disease, and diabetes. Interventions that reduce environmental, metabolic, and behavioral risk factors, air pollution, tobacco use, obesity, hypertension, an unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, and harmless alcohol consumption could reduce risk. Despite the fact that these diseases are preventable, the number of NCDs attributed deaths are increasing everywhere as demographic changes offset the decline in NCDs mortality rate. They are becoming an even larger proportion of total deaths. These trends cut across all income groups globally, from low-income countries to wealthier nations. Consequently, NCDs now account for the vast majority of global deaths each year. This reflects both the world's great progress in tackling some SDG indicators, including infectious disease and child mortality, and the need to now focus on achieving accelerated progress in NCDs. However, such progress is combating NCDs in slowly. How risk factors for NCDs are changing. Obesity, in particular, is on the rise globally, and alcohol use is also increasing in some regions. Meanwhile, the decline in tobacco use is slowing. A well-prepared health workforce under adequate working conditions is essential to a strong health system. Health professionals such as medical doctors and nurses are the people who respond to both emergencies and everyday needs. And the world needs millions more of them if it is to achieve universal health coverage by 2030. Here we can see the dramatic disparities in the number of people versus the number of health workers across different world regions. Each dot represents one person. It reveals just how vast the distribution is throughout the world and highlights the unacceptable scarcity of health workers in some regions. In 2020, the Europe Sustainable Development Report was published. In this website, you can have access to different EU country profiles. You can compare the track progress and trends on achieving the SDGs in different countries. And here you can see what happens in the European Union, and you can see here the difference that exists in different countries. The recent analysis of financial protection in 24 countries has shown out-of-pocket payments push people into poverty or make them even poorer, even in Europe's richest countries, and are most likely to cause financial hardship in the poorest households. Out-of-pocket payments for outpatient medicine are the main driver of financial hardship, and they lead to unmet need among poor people. The design of co-payments is a key determinant of financial protection. And as a conclusion, the world population is not only living longer, but living healthier. The overall improvement in health move along the fault line created by inequalities and echo the status and the progress made towards universal health coverage. Compared with the advances against communicable disease, there has been inadequate progress in preventing and controlling non-communicable disease. Investing in strengthening country health information systems to improve timeliness of data could have the greatest positive impact, and is vital for countries to monitor progress towards SDGs. The promotion and protection of the health and well-being of all people will enable sustainable and equitable forms of social and economic development that will contribute to world peace and environmental protection. Ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being is important to building prosperous societies. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has devastated health systems globally and threatened already achieved health outcomes. Most countries, especially poor countries, have insufficient health facilities, medical supplies, and healthcare workers for the surge in demand. The pandemic has shown that in rich and poor countries alike, a health emergency can push people into bankruptcy or poverty. What can we do to help? We can start by promoting and protecting your own health and the health of those around you by making well-informed choices, practicing safe sex, and vaccinate yourself and your children. You can raise awareness in young community about the importance of good health, healthy lifestyles, as well as people's right to quiet healthcare services, especially for the most vulnerable, such as women and children. You can hold your government, local leaders, and other decision makers accountable to their commitments to improve people's access to health and healthcare. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. SMYRNAKIS, for the insightful speech and talk. I think the main key message of your speech is that it's not important only to live longer, but to live healthier and longer. And in order to protect and promote the health of the others, we must first start with protecting and taking care of our own health. Thank you so much for your speech. And we are moving on to our next speaker, who has a great expertise on energy systems, thermodynamics, mechanical engineering, and nanotechnology. He is Professor of Engineering Thermodynamics at the Ovidius University of Constanta in Romania, and he is the Secretary General of the Black Sea Universities Network. Mr. MAMUT, thank you for making us the honor to participate in the event, and we're looking forward to your speech on energy decarbonization and sustainable industry.
Thank you. Hello, everybody, once again. So it is really a great honor to participate to such an event. And I would like once again to thank also for the previous speakers, because they made some brilliant remarks. I would, let's say, start from the point where Professor SMYRNAKIS was leading his presentation. And as you also, Evangelina, was pointing on, today the world population is not living only longer, but is living healthier. And in this way, the world population reached 7.9 billion inhabitants. And if we compare only 1 century ago, in 1900s, there were just 1.9 billion inhabitants. So we are 6 billion more. And at the same time, each inhabitant of the world, is citizen of the world, on average, is consuming 3 times more energy than 100 years ago. And they are consuming also 2 times more materials, materials in different ways, more than the citizens 100 years ago. Okay, that's perfect. I mean, it's usual and it's perfect to have such an evolution. On the other side, we have to look also what is the efficiency of having this energy. So from 100% raw material energy, we have at the end user around 10%. So from raw materials to the end user, we have 1 to 10, let's say, use of the energy. And the ratio is even worse in the case of materials. So taking into account all this enormous consumption, it is clear that from one side, the world is getting more and more polluted, and the resources are more and more scarce. So from that perspective, let's say one of the major concerns of the citizens around the world, of course, taking aside the current context of pandemics, it was the climate change. So in one of the polls that have been done in the EU, 80% of the population were concerned about the climate change issue. So it is the first issue on all type of concerns of population all around the world. So from that perspective, the things are getting even more complicated, because the simulations that have been done are showing that climate change is getting more and more, let's say, on the headlines, due to the fact that, for instance, you can see here a simulation in the coming decades, the scarcity of water. And you can see that in our region, the Black Sea region and southeast region of Romania, southeast region of Europe, the water scarcity is moving towards minus 40% scarcity of water resources due to the climate change. And of course, this is not only the problem is the very severe, let's say, type of weather that, for instance, these are some photographs of tornado in Sevastopol, the first one, and the last 2 ones are here in Romania, something that in my, let's say, childhood, something like this was unbelievable for our region. So the consequences of climate change are extremely severe, and we are facing them from many different aspects. Of course, then, meanwhile, the knowledge went so far, and there are many research results regarding the factors that are influencing the climate change. So, of course, one perspective, it's always like the two sides of a coin. So from one perspective, there is the, let's say, tendency of mitigation. So what is causing the climate change? And if that cause can be mitigated, the first thing first, we have to start from there. This is one approach. And the other one, the other part of the approach is the adaptation to the changes. So it looks like, I mean, from all what is considered at present, the problem of mitigation and of adaptation cannot be separated, and they have to be tackled from both sides. I was recalling to myself 2 years ago, I had the chance to visit your campus in Halkidiki, a very nice place. And when I was, let's say, on the beach, looking to the water, that fantastic blue of the Aegean, which is unique. And then I had the chance to visit the Athos mountain. Actually, thanks to Professor THEODOSSIU, I visited the Athos mountain. And that is one approach. What we have to do in order to preserve the beauties of the world. Would it be only the possibility to leave the world as nature was giving it, or can we do something else? So from that perspective, of course, the approach that is considered in this transformative approach that was proposed by the SDSN is the aspect of CO2 mitigation, the reduction of the CO2 emissions. Why? Because energy and industry, they are the major contributors to the emissions of CO2. And if CO2 has a demonstrated contribution on the climate change, on global warming, then the major focus of the humanity has to be put on the reduction of the CO2 emissions. How this can be done? Of course, from one side, it can be done by the reduction of consumption. On the other side, it has to be done based on the improvement of efficiency, improving the efficiency of energy conservation and improving the efficiency of energy use. And finally, we have to find alternative solutions for those kind of energy types that are generating CO2 emissions. And here we have already from, let's say, the past, the solution of using renewable energy sources like solar energy, wind energy, and other forms. So in principle, let's say the essence or the synthesis of the knowledge that has been accumulated over the centuries is that if we want to go further with our societies, we have to look for low carbon. We have to look to the improvement of resource use with high efficiency, and of course on social inclusion. So how to address these kind of things, and what kind of, how can I say, what kind of approaches might be followed? So here it is a model of a sort of an ideal type of a sustainable energy future, where all needs of energy of humanity have to be assured only by renewable energy sources. The conversion of these energy sources has to be done towards hydrogen, and then hydrogen to be used on request on need with very high efficient devices for energy conversion, and all the, let's say, byproducts have to be integrated into the natural value chains. So this is a sort of a target, let's say, type of model based on what is known today, and the level of technology that we are and we control it at present. Of course, breakthroughs may come in the coming years, and there might be different other solutions for the future. For the time being, in order to address the current situation, is to aggregate the existing type of energy sources, putting much more emphasis, as I said, on renewables. But it is not possible at present to leave all carbon and fossil fuel systems and to get rid of them in order to replace them with renewables. So the approach that is needed for the coming period is to aggregate them into some distributed energy resources, putting more and more emphasis on the use of renewables instead of fossil fuel. And in this process, of course, there is a very important ally, which consists on the plethora of technologies of digitalization that could offer the possibility of using these resources with high efficiency and on purpose. So the possible methodology to address the decarbonization of energy consists, first of all, as I said, as a first step, reducing energy consumption. So this is the starting point of any kind of transformation approach towards decarbonized energy. The second, let's say, important step is to improve the efficiency over the entire value chain from resource to the end use. And of course, last but not least, is to develop renewable energy solutions and to put more and more emphasis on these kind of solutions for integrating solar energy, wind energy, wave energy, hydro power plants, and so on. Here is an example that we are developing in our city. Constanta is also a city with very how can I say, deep Greek roots, because it was an ancient Greek colony at the origins. And in this city of almost 350,000 inhabitants, we have, let's say, defined a region of the city as a living lab that is intended to be the place where we would like to test different technologies and to put forward the shift from the existing, let's say, low efficiency and high pollutant systems towards renewable energy. And the approach that we have started is to use the reheating stations and to convert them into the solar and biomass type of local district power plants by using as much as it is possible the solar energy for heating, and in the next period also for cooling, and also to aggregate them with very high efficient boilers that can offer, let's say, the backup for heating and to assure the energy needs of the region. Now, coming back to industry, because as I was mentioning, energy and industry are the major pollutants and the major contributors to the CO2 emissions, we can see here that at present the map, the global map of positioning the highly CO2 emission industries are located in some regions from, let's say, Far East, the Southeast region of Asia, to Northern Europe and Eastern Europe, and also in the United States, in Northern America. So in all these, let's say, industrial world map, at present, Europe is counting for about 32%. So 1/3 of the global industry is at present located in Europe. Of course, on the other side, we have to accept that the highest added value is also in the Europe side. And you can see here that there are countries in Europe where the, let's say, industries and in their economies are very, very high added value. And from that perspective, this is a very important starting point. But on the other side, we have to look also that the globalized economy changed this approach and this understanding, because at present, due to this positioning of industrial or the places where the products are manufactured, then the consumption is all around the world. So there is a huge transport distribution that facilitates the distribution of all these products to the 7.9 billion inhabitants of the planet today, that they have to live healthier, as Professor SMYRNAKIS was mentioning, and for that they need a lot of resources. So now it is more and more obvious that this kind of global approach to manufacturing and consumption along and across the world is something that cannot be sustained. So it is more and more clear that the approach has to move towards a closed loop manufacturing, where we have to have localized loops, like was mentioned by Professor MARKIDES, the circular economy loops that have to be considered, let's say, in relation with the current and the specific situation of each region, putting two major objective functions. So in all these processes that have to be considered as a regional and local level, at the end, we have to have a minimization of the raw material extraction, and on the other side, a minimization of waste streams. So these two elements are fundamental. And besides of that, we have to consider all these elements in relation with the specific situation of all the regions. So for that reason, just in order to not take too much of the time, so the manufacturing trends are changing. We have a movement towards mass production. We have the trends for the fourth industrial revolution, and I'm sure that all of you are aware for that. And this standard or reference model of enterprise pyramid is falling now into a completely different shape, into a completely different architecture, integrating the digitalization and the connectivity with other companies in the value chain. So I shall end by presenting the fact that Europe is now a leader in promoting these aspects of sustainable industry putting a lot of emphasis on digitalization. And this is also what is extremely important, is extremely, how can I say, useful for most of the students that are listening or following this event. Because at the end, the new shape of the industry worldwide require new type of education. So we have to understand that the coming decades have to move towards more and more emphasis on entrepreneurship and innovation, and to look for a different profile of the graduates of our universities, and the integration into teams, and to facilitate the work together. So I would like to thank for your attention, and to leave this picture here, where we have to understand that new kind of thinking has to be a sort of integrative, quantum type of thinking. So instead of saying we and you, me or and you, we or the others, we have to start thinking that the truth is not something that can be shared. The truth is something that has a qubit shape. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. MAMUT, for the highlights and all the insights on these topics. They seem pretty interesting, especially for people like me who are not so much aware of these topics, and wish that we had more time so you could elaborate more on these topics, probably in a future event. So thank you so much for your presentation and your speech. And we are moving on to our next speaker. And truth to be told, there is much I could say about the next speaker, but I will try to summarize it in 4 words I picked. He's a leader, he's an innovator, a highly passionate person, and a doer. He's the person behind the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network Youth, the one that founded it in 2015. And he was the director of SDSN Youth since some months ago. He's now program director at the Global Schools program of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network. Mr. Sam Loney, or if you allow me, Sam, thank you so much for kindly accepting my invitation to represent the youth voices in this event. I'm sure you have prepared a very insightful and motivating speech about the role of young people in promoting sustainable development, and we are looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
I realized I hadn't unmuted myself. Thank you very much, Evangelia. It's an absolute pleasure being here with you all at such an important and timely event. And of course, congratulations on the event, and also the launch of SDSN Youth in the Black Sea region. Lots of exciting and very urgent and needed initiatives that are hopefully coming ahead. As mentioned, my name is Sam Loney, and I'm a program director at the SDSN. I founded SDSN Youth in 2015 alongside with some colleagues and friends, it's been going for about 6 or 7 years, and there have been some incredible achievements. But the reason we founded SDSN Youth was, I think, an important one to pay attention to. When we talk about sustainable development and we look at the number of problems that exist, and the notion of sustainable development that's built on this, which is to essentially transform society to ensure that future generations can meet their own needs, to transform society so that we are on a better trajectory, that we are developing more prosperously, but to do so within planetary boundaries. This is a significant transformation for the entire planet. We're talking about the transformation of energy systems, economic systems, political systems, infrastructure, resources, development, and society as a whole. And I thought at the time, and this was a view shared by many of the co-founders, that you are going to need young people to be part of this transformation and lead this transformation. This transformation is not going to be easy. So firstly, young people are going to be very important actors, because historically, young people have played a very important role in these sorts of social transformations that we're talking about. And secondly, universities. And I'll explain those two in a moment. Firstly, on young people. Why young people? Everyone talks about it, it says it's good to have young people involved, but I think it's also very important to articulate why. First reason, they account for approximately 50% of the global population. This is the largest population of young people the world has ever seen, the most educated population of the world has ever seen. 50% of people on the planet are under the age of 30. I mean, this is massive. And it's very important to be able to bring these young people along and to really make them the agents of change, because these young people are going to be future voters, or even our current voters. They are going to be the future workforce, leaders, community organizers, future consumers, and also now. So it's very important to look at it in that respect. But also, there are very important qualities that this generation of young people has, which I think are quite important for this. Firstly, when it comes to social causes, young people tend to donate to charity at higher rates or at higher proportions than their older counterparts. They offer more community service hours than their older counterparts. They will come to basically define 75% of the global workforce by the year 2030. But also, in addition to that, they have other qualities, including their creativity. Research shows that they launch twice as many enterprises and programs as their older counterparts. And this is very important, both in terms of creating jobs and continuing and building their communities and developing their communities, but also because research also shows that they're much more creative, and that young people have a capacity for incredible new creations. And if we are talking about the social transformation and innovation, I think you would want people who are very creative and bring new and fresh mind to the problem, not to always solve the problem with the same thinking that started it, but actually looking at it with fresh perspectives. And of course, they have other values, including the fact that they want to work for companies that only have a social and environmental purpose. And of course, they are much more likely to believe in the climate crisis and regard it as an urgent matter. So there are, I think, many different reasons why young people have specific qualities and why their involvement will be important. But also, as I mentioned before, the biggest social movements in history have been spearheaded by young people who were idealistic, creative, and they had the energy and they wanted a different world. They reimagined a different world for themselves, and they enabled society to also reimagine that new world order with them. And secondly, universities. Why universities? And I think universities, because the important role that universities play as a facilitators. You see, when I was in university, one of the views that I had at the back of my head was, oh, I can't wait to get out of university and go into the real world. But after a while, I actually realized that universities are incredible places for facilitating change. And some of the most innovative ideas, social movements, and changes have come from the university. So instead of always looking outwards, I decided to look inwards. And this is why the SDSN exists, to be able to build a global network of universities that can make a difference. And so our method was use the university sector, work with universities in different parts of the world, work with incredible, passionate students in these parts of the world, and recruit them, train them, give them the tools, the networks and the resources and the support that they need, and allow them to transform their communities for the better. And because of the incredible efforts of our wonderful networks, the changes and the initiatives that have been run are just quite incredible. And we just provided a support service, but it is really the networks and the individuals on the ground who made the difference. But I will be honest, before the pandemic, no country was on track to meet the Sustainable Development Goals. So we were already behind. And now I think we're in a worse situation. So if you look at the SDG index and dashboards, or the Sustainable Development Report that was pioneered by Professor Sachs and many others, you will see that many countries were behind, and now we're in a worse situation. Of course, the pandemic has been the main cause of this. The fact that major economic contractions are happening, the shadow pandemic and the hunger pandemic, essentially, that's going on. The violence against women, the disruptions to education and development finance, and there is a lot to look at there and see, wow, this pandemic has really exacerbated many of the existing problems that we have. But also, even though it's a faint light, there is a little bit of silver lining in this, and this is that crises such as these also give us an opportunity to reimagine the future, to change things for the better, and to build back, but in a better way, and to avoid some of the mistakes that got us here in the first place. And I think young people can play a very important role in leading the movement for a greener and more prosperous, a fair recovery from COVID-19, and to really put us back on the trajectory to get to a sustainable development state, because that is really the only way for the future. The only option we have for our future is sustainable development. And I think young people in the Black Sea region and many parts of the world have the creativity, the idealism, the education, the passion, but also the tools to be able to shape this new world. And SDSN Youth is a proud supporter and facilitator of many of you on the ground. And we hope that the SDSN and the SDSN Youth Network as a whole can continue to support you. I'm no longer in that position, as I am slowly moving away from the title of youth, but we have a wonderful network that is doing incredible things, and we are very much looking forward to supporting the network, the network in the Black Sea region. With that, I thank you, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much, Sam, for your speech and your comments. I'm very sure that SDSN Youth and the people that are volunteering right now, the SDSN Youth will be close and will be supporting everyone and our actions. Thank you so much also for the points that you mentioned in your speech. And if I could just pick one of the points and emphasize on it, is that young people have are very powerful, and they have a great power, and that is their creativity and their energy to make things and to help towards the implementation of the SDGs. Thank you so much. And now we're moving on to the next and the last speaker of this panel, and we couldn't ask for a better and more expertise speaker for this final speech. He's a well-known American economist, academic and public policy analyst with decades of work in sustainable development. He is the president of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network and the director of the Center for Sustainable Development at Columbia University. Professor Jeffrey Sachs, I'm extremely grateful and honored to welcome you in this event. I think thank you is just not enough, and I'm really looking forward to your speech and contribution to this panel.
Great, thank you very much, and thanks to you for launching SDSN Youth for the Black Sea region, and for all of your colleagues, and for so many friends on the line together. I can't wait to start traveling again so we can see each other in person. This is getting tiring to be apart, but returning to the region is at the top of my priority, believe me. So we will be seeing you soon as we really can. Let me say, following what Sam Loney just said, that not only is this a weird year and a very strange period of upheaval because of COVID, and we need to get it under control, and we need good public policies and governments that take proper actions, which has been a big challenge. We absolutely need to think about the future now in a serious way of how we're going to build forward better. It's a nice expression. We've been using the expression to build back better, but yesterday the head of the UN Development Program said we should call it building forward together, because we're not going backward, we're going forward to something new, not just returning to where we were before, because where we were before was not taking care of ourselves. Too much pollution, too much instability, too much inequality, too much danger from climate change, and we know now, obviously, too much danger from new emerging diseases. Again, the experts had told us that we were at risk, but people weren't listening, and governments don't listen very well also until disaster is upon us. But young people, really, you have the need to learn about these issues and the need to say we need to do better on these issues, and your leadership will make a very, very big difference. So 2021 is an important year of global diplomacy, not only because we had better get together to end COVID-19, get these vaccines finally produced and used properly, get the public health measures deployed properly so that we can stop the pandemic, but we need to make advances on all of these long-awaited challenges. And in 2021, we have a backlog of conferences now that are coming, that are international summit meetings. I think very, very important for the world, very important for Europe, very important for the Black Sea region, very important for cooperation and problem solving. There are 3 big environmental summits coming up in September, October, and November. The one in November is probably the best known. That is the climate conference. It was supposed to happen on the 5th anniversary of the Paris Agreement last year, but because of COVID, it was postponed till November of this year in Glasgow, Scotland. And what we need is that every part of the world come to Glasgow with a plan for climate safety, meaning to decarbonize the energy system by the mid-century. And this is a big deal. Fortunately, there's more awareness of it right now. but still we're way behind in actually accomplishing it. And young people, please make plans, devise strategies, say how the various countries of the Black Sea region can really get this done. What should be done with the old coal regions, which can't go on the way they have been in the past? What kind of renewable energy can be tapped? There's a lot of wind in the Black Sea area, by the way, so a lot of great wind power. It happens that the wind tends to blow when the wind is not blowing in the North Sea. So it's a kind of dipole, which is excellent. If you connect the North Sea wind and the Black Sea wind, you have a very powerful mechanism for sharing all of this wonderful zero carbon energy across Europe. So this needs to be worked out from an engineering point of view, from a financial point of view, from a political point of view, from a market point of view, how to integrate the renewable energy of the Black Sea region and the renewable energy of the Mediterranean and the renewable energy of the North Sea into an integrated system of zero carbon energy. In October, just before COP26, so-called, of the climate meeting, will be COP15 of the Convention on Biological Diversity. So just as we have a climate crisis, we have a biodiversity crisis. And this is absolutely true in the Black Sea region and in the Black Sea itself, and in the Mediterranean as well. So the Black Sea region faces many challenges of loss of habitat, of pollution in the Black Sea, of invasive species, of over-harvesting of fisheries, and so on. And the idea of this biodiversity convention is protection of biodiversity through sound marine and land management systems, and the kind of industrial ecology that Professor MAMUT was just speaking of: smarter, cleaner industrial systems. The Black Sea region is complicated because all the rivers in the region flowing in, carrying pollutants, mean that you have many, many countries involved, all ending up in this polluted basin. And that means that we need a lot of regional cooperation on how to manage this heavy chemical industrial economy in a much more sustainable manner, and how to understand the ecology of the region in a much more sophisticated manner in order to protect it. So this is the October meeting. That will be in China, Kunming, China, in mid-October. Then in September, the startup of this is the UN Food System Summit. Very interesting. We haven't had a food system summit for decades, but the idea is that the food system is really under stress, and it also contributes a lot to the climate change and to the pollution, because of all the chemical use in the farm system, because of the methane that is emitted directly biologically, whether it's from rice growing or from cattle farming, because of the nitrous oxides that are the counterpart of the nitrogen-based fertilizer use, because of deforestation and land degradation. So the farm systems need to be more sustainable. Farm practices need to be more sophisticated. And a not small part of the Black Sea region is a breadbasket. It produces a lot of food, a lot of grain, a lot of meat products. And so the sustainability of agriculture in the region is a very, very important goal. Now, one thing that really has impressed me is Europe's packaging of all of this into the European Green Deal. And this is where, again, I would like SDSN Youth to be really helping. Europe has taken a big, bold initiative, the European Green Deal. It includes all the things we're talking about. It includes decarbonization. It includes the farm to fork program for sustainable food systems. It includes the circular economy that Professor MAMUT was just speaking about, for changing the industrial systems, for reducing waste and pollution. It involves digitalization, which is critical. I really like it because it has all of these pieces spelled out with very big goals, but it's complicated, and it's easier to state the goals than it is to achieve them. So one of the things that I regard as absolutely critical is for us to give support to each of our governments and to Brussels to succeed in the European Green Deal. And I'm going around the world holding up the European Green Deal to other regions to say, you should do this too. So I'm trying to promote an ASEAN Green Deal for the 10 ASEAN countries in Southeast Asia. I'm trying to promote a Green Deal in South America. We're having a meeting of finance and environment ministers soon. But we need to make sure that the European Green Deal actually works and that the public understands it and that the government is actually taking proactive steps to achieve it. And maybe I'll reflect just one more moment on empowerment in order to succeed. We need the public to understand, and we need young people to understand, we need old people to understand, we need our politicians to understand. This is not a simple agenda. It's not just a matter of intuition. It requires actually quite a bit of expertise, and then trust of experts also, because we're not all going to be experts on each of these issues, but we need to have a public understanding and trust as well. And that requires an understanding at a level to move forward. In the United States, by the way, of course, we had a president who understood nothing until recently. We got rid of our worst president in history just recently, so I'm in a good mood after that, because we have a much better president now. We had a real idiot, if you'll excuse me. But now we have a smart person, but the public doesn't understand these issues. And we don't have enough, we really don't have enough education, public awareness, explanation. Everything is political fights, not invitations to understand these issues. And maybe SDSN Youth can help on that in public events, in having within the universities convening of local business, scholars, government officials. Young people can call on presidents and prime ministers, don't be shy, and say, we really need to succeed in this country. We are the future of the country. We are studying these issues. We're writing dissertations about them. We're doing research on them. But we really need you, the government, to work with us in the universities to put to practice all of these things. So I think making a real effort on awareness and on bringing more people into this challenge is something that I feel SDSN Youth could play a really special role in accomplishing. Also, I get very nice letters all the time from young people, younger than you, much younger, that are in 7th grade or 8th grade, starting in lower secondary school. And they're so interested in these topics. And with Sam Loney, we're trying to help spread the education for sustainable development into the high schools and into the primary schools, because this also is, I'm sure, will be very resonant with what young people want to understand about their own futures. So I think that this whole area of awareness, planning, research, mobilization of public support, engagement with government is where SDSN Youth can really play a great role. Let me thank you for taking this on, but please count on us in the SDSN, a worldwide network, to give you all the support and to congratulate you for all that you're doing.
Thank you very much, Professor Sachs, for your speech and, of course, your kind words and your support in this event and in everything else that not only the youth networks, but all the youth people are doing, or the young people around the world are doing. I just want to mention that indeed the Black Sea region has many possibilities, and it's up to everyone, to the young people, to the academics, to the politicians, the governments, the public, private sector, and everyone in this region to take action, to form partnerships, and to try to build forward better. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now all the speeches, all the talks are over, so we can move on to some questions we received from the participants. I can say that 3 of them were answered in the Q&A box. So just for your information, dear participants, if you want to see the answers, please check the Q&A box. First, we can move to some other questions. So I can see a question for Ms. Karin MARKIDES, and the question is, how does this digital twin tool that you mentioned in your talk, in your speech, work exactly?
Yes, thank you very much. I really have really enjoyed so much to listen to you all, and comes from all different perspectives, but we're all also saying very much the same thing. So pointing very much at the young people and the universities, and see how we can really engage and play a level play field with public and private. And I think here with these digital twin tools that is coming along in different areas, and not the least in the area of urban planning. I think it's been tested in small scales on living labs and so forth, to put in digital models for different objects in a kind of a test building, more or less. And now it is combined with the urban development of between cities in the world that I talked about. So by doing so, you can actually with the digital tools, you can today model and simulate and optimize city developments and test different options before you actually the transformation that you're testing even leaves the drafting table, if you want. I mean, you have so much possibilities today to use these tools, really to play and see what kind of ripple effects, what kind of possibilities and challenges that different changes will make for when you have such a complex, workplace as a city, which is impossible to do by stakeholder or by project. So so I think that this. I don't know if that answers the question, but there are possibilities. I mean, there are things that you can find on the internet where this is, but I suspect very much that this will be a very, will grow very much in different areas, not the least in the European Green Deal projects. I think I've already seen a lot of examples.
Thank you so much for your answer to the question. And there's another question for Professor Jeffrey Sachs. What's your opinion about the COP26 held in UK? What can deal with and can be done? What it can deal with, I think it's a question, and what can be done?
Thank you. COP26 is really important because we've run out of time to keep the climate safe. If we lose this chance to really change course, we won't keep temperature rises below 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is the limit that we're trying to maintain, the agreed limit in the Paris Agreement. 2020 was the warmest year on record, tied with 2016 at about 1.2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial temperature. And it was more frightening than 2016 because 2016 was an El Nino year in the Pacific Ocean, which usually makes things warmer. But 2020 was a La Nina year, which usually makes things cooler. And even though it was a La Nina year, the average temperature was record-breaking. And it shows that we are on a trajectory, a path of rapid warming, which is making it extremely difficult to stay safe on this planet. And the COP26 is the most important meeting, at least since the Paris Agreement, to change course. There's good news. The good news is Europe has said decarbonize by 2050. And then following that, President Xi Jinping at the UN last September said, okay, China will decarbonize by 2060 latest. And then Japan said, we will decarbonize the Japanese economy by 2050. And then President Moon of Korea said, we will decarbonize the Korean economy by 2050. President Biden will put that goal into effect in the United States in the coming weeks. We're really making now a not global unanimity, but a growing weight of the world economy standing with the goal of decarbonization. I would really like to see the countries of the Arabian Gulf region, which are major hydrocarbon companies, saying, we understand, we understand we have to decarbonize. Russia, which of course has a huge oil and gas industry, saying, we understand we have to move towards renewables. Fortunately, Russia has many, many renewables that it could tap. So we need to broaden the understanding and get the global awareness that we're essentially out of time for climate safety. And that means now. The good news is that if you analyze, is this possible? Could the Black Sea region decarbonize? The answer is yes. The technologies are available. We need long distance power, transmission to share a larger network of sunshine, wind, and other power into one network, because no one energy source by itself can do it. And that's also part of the cooperation that we need regionally and globally. But my answer, in short, is this is a very important meeting, very important to confirm a universal goal of decarbonization, and very much important to confirm cooperation in each region of the world. How do the countries work together rather than viewing it as one country at a time, which will not work?
Thank you so much for your answer, Professor Sachs. And if any of the other speakers would like to comment anything, of course, you can unmute your microphone and share your thoughts. I saw that Professor THEODOSSIU just unmuted himself.
Thank you. If I may say something, I would like to put an issue on the table. We are now in the midst of the pandemic. We just started to see a light at the end of the tunnel through the vaccines, and we all expect to see to get through in this difficult period and move to the next day. But how can we make sure that the day after, the new normal that we expect after the pandemic will be better than the old normal? Because it's very important, and it's very important for our future through the implementation of the SDGs, but through our everyday life. How can we avoid going back to the old normal and achieving something new? We're in the process of a restart, of a global restart. How can we take advantage of this global restart to make to go to a better future?
May I say something, Nikos?
Of course.
Good. Yeah. Thank you, and so great to see you.
You too. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being with us.
You know, we had a near disaster in the United States, which was Donald Trump. He's a psychopath, and he became president of the United States, and he was willfully negative about all important good things. He denied climate. He denied the COVID virus. We ended up with more than 500,000 deaths in the United States because of Trump. He tried to violently overthrow the election results. So this is really, and he created divisions globally. So he pulled the US out of the Paris Agreement. He created a trade war with China that was completely unnecessary. He created tremendous stress with Europe and so on. If we have bad governance, there is no good answer to your question, because if we do not have good, responsible governance, we cannot achieve these objectives. And we had a near disaster in the US, and we have to work to ensure that that kind of politics does not return. It's based, by the way, on stoking a lot of hatred, because there's a lot of racism in American society, and Trump played on that. He played on the worst values that are entrenched in American society and American history, and won power for a short period of time. So we have to keep dangerous people like this far away from politics. But how to do it? You know, it's a question, as you know, I love Plato and Aristotle, and it's a question that Plato asked 2,350 years ago in the Republic. How do you make sure that philosophers are kings and kings are philosophers? And so he created an entire republic around that one theme. How do we train leaders to be responsible and therefore have the governance needed for justice in the republic? So we're still on the same challenge as we were 2,300 years ago. And I think our role, well, it's the same. We're following in the footsteps of Plato and Aristotle, because they believed that philosophy was key to answering this question. And I would say our universities, epistemios, are key to solving this. We need knowledge to bring the knowledge to bear, to help society understand the nature of these challenges. And I do believe in democratia, and that was another question, but we can only have democracy working if people are well informed. And so I think that that is really a major part of our challenge. I saw that Karin has her hand up.
Yeah, okay. Yes, thank you for that. And it really triggers my thought a little bit also, because I talked before also about ripple effects, that when we start to transform in one way, we also have ripple effects. And that, of course, is something that we could utilize. But in some cases, it really comes in a bad way, and this what happened in the US is actually, I can see that also in the Swedish society. And we had, just a week ago, we had a really kind of unheard of demonstration that was not even allowed by people that are well educated. And they are anti-vaccines and anti-5G and all these actually of course, we have to be sure that that the knowledge is also transferring over between the disciplines. And I think universities are very important, and I think, but we in the university level, we have to really do our homework also, because we haven't done that homework of really connecting and building trust when you connect the different disciplinary knowledge. Because I worked for the Swedish government for a few years, and I could see that I expected that my task that I had there to make the different ministries to talk to each other and identify challenges. That was not the hardest. The hardest was that my expertise that I had in my 12 expertise scientists from different disciplines, to make them to come up with an agree on a scientific solution. I mean, it was really kind of an eye-opener that we have a lot to do also in our own home for this. And I think that another thing that I also mentioned in my talk was that I think could help us to overcome this complexity is that, you know, whatever challenge we work with, if we try to see that people's health is going to be what we put first, as the first priority, and if that whatever we do, if we kind of relate and mirror the development into people's health, I think it will people can catch on that, because that will actually break through and bring people over to trust. I think that could be one way, maybe not in all cases, but I think in many cases.
Excellent. I'm going to have to bid goodbye because I have another event at the top of the hour. So let me say thanks to all the friends, and Evangelia, to you and your colleagues, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much
Jeff.
for joining.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for being with us, Jeff. Thank you.
Professor Sachs, he left already. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you allow me, I would like also to continue with the point that was made by Professor Markides, because, you know, when we are looking both in the US and in Europe to the way in which the politicians are considering the restart of the economies with these huge packages of funding that has to, let's say, push the economy and to give, let's say, the trigger for the restart. Of course, it is very, how can I say, frightened, the question that you put on the table, that this huge amount of funds would then, let's say, direct the economies into a little bit more, not much more, but a little bit more sustainable path, instead of moving towards a consumerist and higher, let's say, consumption developments. And I fully agree with the point that Professor Markides made, that actually at this point it is fundamental to put emphasis on science evidence and to put more evidence on promoting knowledge, and to offer to the politicians the aspects that are or have been demonstrated by how can I say, by putting them on paper, and by making some very simple calculations and connections to them. From that perspective, I think that in the next period, the position of the scientists, the position of the universities have to be more important. And the let's say, way of relating the activities between the scientists, the educators, and the decision makers has to be fundamentally reconsidered in the society. Thank you.
Yes, of course.
It's okay. Okay. So I have a challenge for you all, and that is we talk about politicians and how now it's a good opportunity, you could say, that they give funds to industry so that they could actually take also a possibility to transfer, to move into this what we need for sustainable solutions. Problem is though that you know that politicians, of course, they have to, in order to stay in power, they have to think about unemployment. So what does that mean? That means, of course, that they are not going to support large funds to the right companies. They're going to support the ones that have a lot of people employed, which is, of course, I mean, it's a good cause. We want that too. But that's what happens, is that I can see that very, very much where I have looked deep dived into this, that it is very clear that the transformative, the real companies that are small and would transform the whole society, you know, to take a totally different perspective, also applying it to a circular way of thinking, is not what the big companies are doing, because they are, you know, like bulldozers. They cannot turn so fast, and they have this whole tradition, and they have the supply chain and everything. It's hard for them, even if in the boardroom they know it and they can talk about it. It doesn't really come into the whole, and they don't get that support from the governments, because the governments love to help them to keep the employer employed. So that, I think that is a huge challenge. And what can we do then from our perspectives, from universities and other stakeholders, to really help that is, because that could destroy this possibility. Any solution?
Well, you mentioned in your presentation that there's a huge potential for green jobs in the future. So maybe if they will be persuaded that investing in green jobs or in green infrastructure, maybe that could be a solution to both problems, to solve unemployment and to help achieve the sustainable development goals or our common future. But they need to understand that investing in green infrastructure and in green jobs is something positive, because as you said, they really need immediate results. They need to reduce unemployment immediately. But I think it's a challenge. It's a good opportunity to set this standard and to set this option, this possibility of investing in greener jobs for the future. I don't know how we can achieve that, or how they can be persuaded to do that. Maybe on a higher level, not just on a government level, but on a European Union level, for example, or something bigger than national governments. Maybe that could be a way to go forward in this direction.
Maybe the young generation, if they all get together and say, hey, we really need to have green jobs, we only want that. They say that, and we're going to vote for you guys if you go that way. I mean, there must be something, because the politicians are so short in their office. So, you know, if there are some that really are going in the right direction, and they are not going to stay there very long. So we have to find another solution. Do we have a Greek solution?
I can see that MIHAJLOV.
They just said something just to remind us that we at UNEP level starting new Green Deal in 2009, and this reached European Union in 2020, and how it's going to reach the other countries or regions. This is really slow motion, short-term thinking, and we are, I don't know, we are on the same path here as a family of science, knowledgeable and scientific-based people, but this is really what's going on. Really short-term thinking, slow motion, and something that I would like to see different picture.
If you allow me, I would like also to add something. Actually, there is a point that was made in the Q&A session by, just 1 second, about the power of one. I don't see it now, but yeah, the Mayor Henry, the best answer I've heard so far is the power of one. Each of us need to start the change. And this is actually also my opinion, because when I'm teaching to my students and I present sustainable development, so I present it as is traditionally with the 3 pillars. So one is resource efficiency. The second one is consistency with natural cycles. And the third one actually is a fundamental shift on our perception of well-being and about what is actually the way in which we perceive, let's say, our well-being. So from that perspective, we can see that there were fantastic steps forward in the first pillar regarding resource efficiency, because those were technologies. There were many research activities considering, okay, new higher efficiency, higher productivity, and so on and so forth. The second pillar about greening, considering new type of materials, considering new aspects of integration into natural cycles, also moved a little bit into technological aspects. But at the end, the third pillar, which is fundamentally pointing on our own, let's say, transformational approach on how we consider welfare and to shift towards sufficiency approach of well-being. This is very, very difficult, and actually this has to be also a very fundamental aspect in all what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. And if there is not another comment, I can say that it's 7:15, so we are on our time. And the truth is that there is another question, the last question, and I would like to ask you if you have a short comment on this question. I can read it. One of my biggest concerns for the Black Sea region as well, the rest of Europe, is that predominant take-make waste logic of using natural resources to ultimately waste them by incineration or deposition in landfills instead of turning them into nutrients for new goods. How could we get rid of this logic as fast as possible? I know that it's a question that can bring up hours of discussion, so if there is a short comment, we would be glad to hear it. Yes, of course.
Just short comment. This circular economy concept starts for the waste management, and the recipe is there, and start to develop infrastructure to go for recycling first, and after that all the rest.
I also very short. I think in addition to that, I think, or together with that, I think it's very good to think about that all the stakeholders in the whole circular system needs to kind of see each other. So if you have to set that, build the trust between all the stakeholders in the whole circle, public, private, and make the university to be in a level play field, equal voice, not be part of the public or the private. I think if you get that then it's possible to move on it.
Thank you. I would also make a very short comment. So as was mentioned also by Professor Zaks, the Black Sea is actually draining the waste from most of the Europe. So only if you look to Danube and to see that 3,000 kilometers, but also the huge drainage area, the catchment of the Danube, is bringing more than 60% of the pollutants in the Black Sea are coming from all around Europe. So from that perspective, we have to find out a possibility to make responsible those who are polluting the Black Sea, and only in the way of putting an appropriate, how can I say, distribution of responsibility, we shall be able to cope with that. Otherwise, is overflooding our capacities of the region. Thank you.
Eden, just mirror with Baltic Sea, because they have solved this in many ways.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would like to thank you all for joining us today and for supporting our event. It's obvious that without you, we couldn't have made this event a reality. And of course, a great thank you to all of you in the audience who joined us today. We hope that you enjoyed the event, you got inspired and motivated as much as I did. And last but not least, I would like to thank the chair and the manager of SDSN Black Sea for their valuable support during the organization of the event, and of course all the people that technically assisted us today and contributed to the success of this event. I have shared the social media of SDSN Youth Black Sea in the chat and also a feedback form, and we would be very grateful if you got to maximum 5 minutes to fill it in. And I can give the speech to all of you, the speakers that you are here, for a final remark, if you have.
I could start, as
Yes.
I don't speak a little. I believe that we have to give our effort to universities, to the next generation of politicians. I'm not really very optimistic with the politicians that we have, but if we start to discuss for universities about the SDGs, we can have a better future. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this very nice discussion today.
Thank you, Mr. SMYRNAKIS, and whoever wants to go next.
Myself, if you allow me, I would like, besides thanking to all your efforts and for the fantastic work that Professor THEODOSSIU is doing, but also Professor MARKIDES, that is the future president of the Black Sea Universities Network, and for all the other contributions. But I would like also to thank the participants, and some of them for the very nice, let's say, comments and questions that they put in the Q&A. So there are different remarks that I consider them extremely valuable. And from that perspective, let's say, sharing all these aspects that give a much broader dimension to this event. Thank you, and I wish you success for further activities.
Thank you very much, and we hope that you have the chance to collaborate for a future event with you, Mr. MAMUT, and of course with every one of you being here today.
I just would like to thank you for opportunity to join this nice family today, and it is really a pleasure to listen all of you and to be the part of this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I want to thank also the organization, of course, Nico, and of you, Evangela. How do you say that?
Evangelia, but you can
Evangelia, asfalos. So So thank you very much, and thank you for starting this this organization for with the young people. I hope that we can also join and really build Eden also for going forward more activities, and really it's all what we do is for you. So I hope that you feel that. I think there was a very positive energy in this meeting, and that is very hopeful. Thanks everybody.
Thank you very much.
I say also, just concluding, I would really like to thank all the speakers today for their time and their effort and their contribution. It was really fantastic. We really had a great audience, and I would like to appeal to this audience, especially the young people. You have the power, you have the strength, you can take things in your hands. And this is a way to join forces together through this network, through this SDSN Youth Network. So please contact Eva, Evangelia, bring your colleagues, your fellow students together. I think we can do a lot of things together. We can perform miracles. I mean, I truly believe that the power of the young people is the power of the future. Thank you again, everyone, for everything.
Thank you, everyone.